Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome today Mr. Eddy Ankrett, who's a great friend and mentor of mine. I'm going to spend a bit of time talking to Eddy because I know there's such a lot of value in the experiences that he's had in his life. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's had all sorts of successes. He's had ups and downs in his life that have brought him to a place where now he's a huge asset to the business community, particularly in the Midlands area, and someone I'm very proud to say I know very well and consider him a good friend of mine.
Good morning everybody and good morning Grant.
So I'm going to talk him through his life story, and I hope that people out there that are looking to be inspired by business people, especially big personalities like Eddy, can really take a lot from this. So morning Eddy, and really appreciate you taking the time to join me today. I'd like to start, if we could, just by taking you back to your early years. I'm not actually sure where you were brought up, what area?
Born and bred in Small Heath in Birmingham, and I'm a very, very proud Brummie.
Really? So what school did you go to?
I went to Marlborough Road School. I was absolutely a dunce academically. For the last 2 years of my education, the teacher I had was the England badminton coach, who of course took us all into the hall, threw up a shuttlecock and said, hit that. Anybody that hit it was going to be a badminton player. So I ended up spending the last 2 years of my education playing lots of sport, and I left school an absolute dunce, a complete dunce. But I was good at sport. So I spent the first formative years of my work life playing sport. I then got sort of a job, which I don't even know how I got it. I saw the careers officer and ended up being a junior salesman at a place called Hepworth the Tailors, which was next door to the Odeon in New Street, which used to have all the big concerts on in those days, and the Beatles appeared on the Odeon. And I got this job as a junior salesman, and I stood in the line with 5 other juniors, and I was told to call David Bottrell, the manager, sir, and I thought, ooh. So I did that, and then he said, Edward, he said, we want you to basically make the tea in the mornings, go and fetch all the toast and the sandwiches, and at lunchtime we want you to do the same, the afternoon tea, and to fetch any sandwiches, etc. necessary, and then when you've finished and you've cleared away and you've tidied up, if you've got any time left, you can go onto the shop floor. I thought that was awful. I thought this is not what I thought work was all about. But suddenly I realised I was a smart little kid with a stiff collar, and I used to go out with cash in my hand, which was all the money from the 35 staff in the shop to get their stuff. And all the food departments that I needed to go and buy stuff from were downstairs in the basement of all these department stores. And I suddenly realised there were lots and lots of young girls who, like me, had been dumped out of school and given this job working in a shop. And I walked down the stairs, a little sort of Kevin Costner lookalike, very smart. And these girls looked at me and I looked at them, and I had money in my hand. And I suddenly realised if I started chatting these girls up, that I could get dates. And so that would sort my social diary out. I thought, this is not so bad, this. And then I suddenly thought to myself, well, hang on a minute, if I then chat these girls up, get dates from them, and also talk to them about getting some discount, or maybe a little bit extra cheese, or a little bit extra this, a little bit extra that, I could actually make money. So within about 3 months, I was actually earning £25 a week profit from doing the job that I was asked to do. My salary, by the way, was £4.50 a week. So I suddenly thought to myself, this is fantastic. So I had a great social life after work, and I was actually making money from making the tea. So I think I suddenly thought at the time that I was a little bit of an entrepreneur. So I did that, and then after about a year, David Bottrell called me up and said, Edward, you've done a fantastic job. We're really pleased. I'd like to introduce you to, let's say his name was David, the new junior salesman, and we want you to train him, and congratulations, you're now going onto the shop floor, and we're going to increase your salary to £7.50 a week. Honestly, I cried. I said, Mr. Bottrell, no, I'll carry, no, Edward, you can't do that. And I thought, he's going to completely ruin my social life, and I'm going to lose me £25 a week. So it's no surprise to everybody to then hear that I trained young David, and of course I got a percentage out of David. So that was my initial becoming an entrepreneur.
So he was a trainee entrepreneur as well as a trainee sandwich fetcher.
Yeah.
So that was your first inkling. How old were you, Eddie, when you were
16?
16. Was that in Birmingham, was it?
Right, in New Street, smack next door to the Odeon.
So you're a Brummie through and through.
Absolutely, I'm proud of it.
Yeah, me too. So from there, how did you
I then got a job in a company called John Temple, which is on the Coventry Road in Small Heath, and they were the tailors. I went to work there, and I had a manager there called Alan Boardman, who, amazingly enough, 50 years later, from me mentoring a young lad called Scott Caddick, who's got a company called Colmore Tailors in Birmingham, from me mentoring him, one day Scott rang me and said, Eddie, you'll be amazed to know that I've met somebody that knows you. I said, well, to be honest, that's no surprise if it's Birmingham, because most people know me. And he said his name's Alan Boardman. And I went, what? I worked for him when I was about 18 years of age at John Temple. So I've now reconnected with Alan, who's got a tailoring business in the centre of Birmingham, and that's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I worked for John Temple, and then a couple of doors away was a radio TV shop called Top Rank, and they wanted a salesman, and I thought, that's a growing industry, the TV, radios and all that stuff. So I went to work there.
What sort of time would this have been?
Oh, I'm 73 now, so you go back to when I was 18, so it's a long time ago. I can't even remember. So I did that job, and then lo and behold, they offered me a manager's job, and I thought, that's great. But the problem was, it was a little shop in West Bromwich, and in West Bromwich High Street, which in those days was really fantastic high street. In those days, Erdington High Street, Kingsheath High Street, there were some great high streets in Birmingham. And anyway, this one in West Brom, the problem with the shop was it was very, very small. And I did two things which actually in those days was somewhat unique, that I realised that a lot of my customers were going to be Asian customers, and they wanted to get shortwave radio so they could get India. So I started to get them to teach me how to say hello, which is Salam alaikum, walaikum salam, what's good, tiga. So I started to learn little bits of the language. Because they thought I spoke a bit of the language, they brought more and more people in. So that was very, very successful for me. And the other thing that I did, this little shop, which I did tell Grant this morning, this little shop was so small that people used to walk past the shop and they didn't even notice it was there. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. In those days, you used to have these stack hi-fi systems, and I thought, I'm going to put a couple of speakers out the front of the shop. I'm going to play music, so when people walk past, they can hear the music and look at my shop. Well, I did it, and then I started getting lots of complaints from the other shops saying the music's too loud, turn it off. And I said, no, I'm not going to turn it off because it's working for me. So in the end, they reported me to the police. The police came along and said, turn it off. And I said, no. So the police, I'm going to say the word arrested me. Well, they took me to the police station. And that turned into a story, which was in the Express and Star. And I was on the front page of the Express and Star with my story. So did that work for me? Yes, because it became a story. Everybody sort of knew the shop was there. And that little shop went from being an also-ran shop within the Top Rank group to a very, very successful shop. And then, because it's the electrical trade, I was selling lots and lots of electrical products. And then I saw an advert for Hot Point washing machines. And they wanted an area rep for Dudley and Cradley Heath and that sort of South Staffs area. And Tony Muller, who was the boss there, said, I don't normally employ young men like you to be a rep, but you've got such enthusiasm that I'm going to give you a try. And I then went and became a rep for Hot Point.
So your criminal record didn't affect you
No,
there?
not at all.
Did you spend any time in the cell, did you?
No.
It was just a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, just a slap on the wrist.
You know, the bobbies were proper bobbies, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, great days.
Yeah.
Great days.
Hot Point back then would have been, they're a big business.
Yeah.
They still got a lot.
They had their sort of regional office on the Pensnet estate in Kings Winford. And I used to have what they used to call demonstrators in all the big department stores, where they demonstrated the washing machines, demonstrated the vacuum cleaners, etc. And I've got a wonderful story where Hot Point used to put on a £150 bonus if you did over 100% of your target. And I thought, I'm going to get that. And every single month, trust me, I made sure I got the 100% bonus. Anyway, this one day, I thought, I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to sort of try and incentivise these people. So I went to this warehouse, and they had an offer on ladies' tights, and I thought, I'll buy some of those, and I'll give a pair of tights for anybody who sells one of my products. So I bought loads of these tights, and went round all the stores and told all the demonstrators, if you sell one of my Hot Point washing machines, I'll give you a pair of tights, knowing if I got the stock out, they'd want to buy more. What I didn't realise was that from a woman's perspective, a pair of tights is something that they need lots of. So suddenly at all these stores, Hot Point washing machines, Hot Point stuff was flying out of the stores, and I was having to buy more and more tights from the wholesalers, and it suddenly became a massive success. And then I got myself in trouble, because I suddenly got this phone call from Tony Muller saying, Eddy, you're in trouble. I said, what's happened? He said, we've got to go and see the Midland Electricity Board, which used to be at the top of Mucklows Hill. They're accusing you of incentivising the staff. I said, yes. He said, but it's a public company, and they're accusing you of
Is that because they were one of the sales
arms? One of their sales people.
Got you. Yeah.
And I was incentivising them, so it was a bit like I shouldn't be doing it. So I ended up going to this Mucklows Hill, sitting on a chair with these people who were the bosses of the MEB, and I got an absolute rollicking for incentivising their staff without getting permission. And anyway, I got this bollocking. I walked outside, and Tony Muller said, "You've had your bollocking. Well done, well done." So it was another little story of mine where I thought outside the box, and it was successful for me.
So what's interesting is you went from being effectively a manager of a shop,
Mm-hmm.
and then you
Went
got
to a rep,
and then you became a sales rep. So presumably that meant
and I had a Cortina 1600E, which had the
beautiful
wood inside, and I thought I was a real executive. And then I saw this advert for a regional manager for Kenwood mixers, and there was a man called Ken Wood, and he had this factory in Haverton, Hampshire, and I went and applied for the job and got it. And I suddenly became the regional manager for the North, which in those days, anything north of Luton was called the North.
Yeah.
So I suddenly became regional manager for the North, for Kenwood Mixers, and they had, again, demonstrated in all the stores, and I suddenly went from a Cortina 1600E to a Zephyr Zodiac with a little thing on the front like a Rolls Royce, and it had this big long bonking seat which at the front, so it's great for my social life. And then one day I went to a place called Hull, which is the arse end of Britain, and because it's a long way away.
Apologies to any partners in Hull.
Yes, no, it's a great place.
City now, city of culture.
I go to Hull every year for the squash, and I was staying overnight, and I went to sell some mixers to a man called Michael Hollenbury, who then owned a company called Comet Electrical, and his dad had left him this company because he died, and Mike was an accountant. And because I'm the sort of person that always asks questions, I started asking Michael about his life and what he did, And he said, "Oh, you're staying the night?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'd like you to meet somebody." He brought across in the evening a chap called, I've forgotten his name. Anyway, he brought across this guy who was the chairman of New Hunslet Rovers Rugby Club, and he said, "We want to talk to you about an idea we've got for starting a discount warehouse called Comet." And he talked to me about it, and he said, "We've got a buyer, a guy called Nikolai Towler. What we need is a salesman. We need somebody as a sales manager. Would you be interested?" And then we chatted and chatted about it. The next morning, one of these things of my life, I believe life is a process of decisions. Some you get right, some you get wrong, but please make a decision, and then you'll get on in life. So I made the decision the following morning. I was going to resign from Kenwood, where I had this company car, expenses, great job, to take a risk to go as sales manager for this company that was just going to start, called Comet Discount Warehouses. Anyway, I did it, and we opened our first warehouse in Armley Road, Leeds, and we all know what happened to Comet Discount Warehouses. It grew and it grew and it grew. We opened 40 odd warehouses, lots of stories about Comet, and it became a massive success.
How was your sort of, is that, presumably that was a big part of your life then from that?
It was a wonderful,
so effectively you were
wonderful part of the
part of the founding team of Comet as we know it.
Yes.
And that kind of was the
I was in charge of
inception
opening the stores, I was in charge of training, I was in charge of basically motivation of the people, and it was just wonderful. Those were the days when it was just a warehouse full of stock. We didn't display anything. People would come in, ask for a product, and we'd get the product at a discount price, give it to them, and they'd go away. And it was fascinating. It was those were the days before credit cards, so there was lots of cash.
Everything was cash, yeah.
Lots of checks, and I'll never forget one experience when one day I got a phone call that one of the warehouses was not particularly good. It was in Dagenham, so I went down and saw Ray, who was the manager at Dagenham, and whilst I was upstairs in his office, basically giving him a bollocking about the state of the store, suddenly one of the staff came from downstairs and said, "Excuse me, Ray, excuse me, Mr. Ankrett, but we've got a fire at the back of the store." I said, "A fire? We'll go and put it out then. We've got the fire. Go and put it out." Anyway, came back, he said, "Mr. Ankrett, it's like it's gone up to the ceiling and it's starting to go across." I said, "Oh my God, have you phoned the fire service?" So he phoned the fire service. I went down to the store to find that there was literally a fire, and it went up the top of the store, was going along the top. And in those days, all the televisions, which we had hundreds and hundreds of them in boxes, were all wood.
Of course, yeah, cabinet televisions.
So the place went up. So I then obviously started with Ray clearing everybody out the store. Out the store. I'll never forget this one woman said, "I'm not going, I've come to collect my iron." I said, "But there's a fire, you've got to get out the store." "But I want me iron, please." And I swore at her, "Get out the store." So anyway, the store literally burned down.
Oh my
so I
God.
thought, gosh, I've got to, Jerry Mason, that was the man, I forgot his name. I've got to phone Jerry. So I went to a petrol station, which was over the road. I said, "Could I use your phone? Because that's my warehouse over the road that's just burnt down." And the guy said, "Of course you can." So I used the phone, rang up, spoke to Jerry. I said, "Jerry, I've got some bad news." I said, "I've just come to Dagenham because it wasn't very good, and the place is burning down, and the fire engines are here. Just got to let you know." And he said, "Eddie," he said, "what I want you to do," he said, "by next week, I want you to find a warehouse, and I want you to reopen. I want you to get paste tables. We'll get some stock down there, and I want you to open within a week in some warehouse, and I want it to be business as usual." So again, it taught me a real story about, even though you get disaster in your life, keep business going.
Yeah.
And I did obviously lots of TV interviews because the place had burnt down, but I learned a massive lesson about business. But those days with Comet, they were absolutely wonderful.
It's fascinating. That. I mean, there's a couple of things there that I've picked up on. First of all, after you had the meeting with the guys to set that, you handed in your notice the next day, so you didn't hang about.
No,
and it could have been a disaster. It was the same as any startup. You know,
as I just said, life is a process of decisions. Some you get right, some you get wrong. Yeah. I have in my life made a couple of decisions. One of them was getting married to somebody that was wrong. So. But at least throughout my life,
not his current wife.
I've been prepared to make decisions.
Yes.
And I would say 80% of the time, the famous 80-20 rule, 80% of my decisions have been good.
But the point is that you've got the gumption to actually take the decisions, you know, and a bit like your business partner there, Jerry, when he said, right, you know, we've had a disaster, but let's just crack on. Let's get that warehouse open, take action. And
when he told me, I thought he was out of his cotton picking mind. I thought he was stupid.
I bet you did it though, didn't you?
I did, absolutely. Because he told me I got to do it. So within a week, I found this empty warehouse where they used to do gun testing, and I was able to rent this warehouse.
Fantastic.
So it was fantastic. Great days. Another little story, which is a true story. I had a warehouse in Bristol. And I went down to Bristol this one day, and there's something about Bristolians, I don't know what it is, but they're basically miserable. And and fundamentally, I went into this warehouse, and all the staff were they were lovely people, but they didn't smile. They didn't have that natural ability to smile. And I went away, and I was cogitating about it. And I went to a market one day. I don't know where it was. And as I was walking around this market, I saw this box, and it had smiley badges in it, just little round smiley badges. Yeah. And I said to this guy, can I buy that box of smiley badges? And the guy said, well, of course you can, but what do you want to do that for? I said, doesn't matter, can I buy the box? He said, yeah. So I bought this box off him, jumped in my car, drove all the way down to Bristol, walked in, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing in one of the first rules of Comet Discount Warehouses. As from today, each of you are going to wear a smiley badge, and I got one on. And I said, see that smiley badge there? Everybody's going to wear that smiley badge. And do you know why I'm asking you to do it? Because when people walk in the warehouse and they walk up to the counter and they say hello to you, they're going to look at your face, and you're not going to smile at them, are you? But what they're then going to do is look at the smiley badge, and then they're going to smile. And because they smile, you're going to smile. So at the end of the day, everybody's happy. So I did that, and again, it worked, and it was a wonderful, silly little thing I did in my life. Yeah. But life is about, those sort of things.
Yeah, it's about taking action, isn't it? Yeah. And that's, a good example of you thinking outside the box again. Or rather, what was in the box.
The box, smiley badges.
So I bet there was a bit of because Comet, sadly, they're no longer, they closed down. Was it a couple of years ago now?
Yeah.
I bet there was a bit of a sadness.
The funny thing was, a guy called Jackson took it over, and I actually emailed him, found out his email address, sent him an email and said, if you want me to ride in on my white horse and rescue and re-erect the Comet that I know and love, I'll happily do it. And my idea was to go back to Comet and take it back to, because Comet had turned into just another retailer. Yeah. They got all the products displayed. It was just like a Courage warehouse that you'd see today. And I thought, that's not Comet. And I think Comet should be a warehouse that does refurb products, it does discount products. Go back to basics, go back to what it was. But I was too late, and in the end, the company went. But I went many, many years previous when Comet got bought by a big group called Kingfisher, and at that time, because I was a bit of a name in the electrical industry, I was getting headhunted, and I got headhunted for a company called Mitsubishi, a big Japanese company, and they offered me a job as managing director. And I'd always had this sort of passion when I started doing well of being a success, and by the age of 31 I was MD of a company called Teleton, which was a big electrical company that was part of the Mitsubishi group, and I was wearing a striped suit every day, and I was an MD, and I thought to myself, I've made it. But suddenly I realised I was in a job, wearing a striped suit every day, travelling the world, and I suddenly became very, very unhappy. The Japanese loved me because of my personality, but I suddenly realised that me going out with the lads on a Wednesday and Friday for a drink, me playing squash 3 or 4 nights a week at my club in Birmingham, which I used to love, all that went for a ball of chalk. So I suddenly thought success is okay, but it's not what I want. So in the end, I took a sabbatical from Mitsubishi, came back to Birmingham, got back into going out with the lads on a Wednesday and Friday. I was sort of financially independent in those days, and I started playing my squash again. And then, through squash, the next episode of my life happened.
So Mitsubishi really was was a high-flying job, wasn't it? And was that?
It was.
What do you put that down to? Because I guess that, you know, knowing you as a do and the things that you've been involved with since, where you're very much sort of, master of your own destiny, if you like. Do you think it was the corporate life?
It was
perhaps,
basically, I put it down to wearing a striped suit every day and dealing with people at a high level, and I suddenly realised that fundamentally I'm a street fighter. I'm born on the streets. I grew up on the streets. I need to deal with day-to-day people. I need to deal with real people, and I suddenly realised that the higher you go in business, you're dealing with, if I can say the word, basically people who I think are wankers. And I found I just didn't fit. So I thought it is also, and my work-life balance had gone, and I wanted to go back to basically what I enjoyed in my life, which in those days was having a drink with the lads on a Wednesday and Friday. And
were you married at this
playing my
point?
squash.
Did you have a family?
Actually, because of the success that I had with Mitsubishi, I did tragically go through a divorce. So I found myself on my own at the age of, I think I was 40 something by this stage. So I think that was part of it. I think that because I went through a divorce and success certainly didn't work for me, that I came back to Birmingham, came back to my roots, and started a new chapter of my life.
And that, I'm guessing, brings us on to, was it
estate
agents? Yeah.
Within Edgbaston Priory, where I used to play my squash, was a chap called Clive Turner, and he had a small company called Ward Turner. And I thought to myself, I know what I'd like to do. I'd like to become a professional person. And in those days, the 3 things that you could do without qualifications, one was become an optician, have an optician shop. Number 2 was become an insurance salesman, insurance broker. And the third one was an estate agent. And I suddenly thought to myself, do you know, what's the biggest thing anybody ever owns in their life that is of value to them? And a market where estate agents are supposed to sell houses, but actually what happens in Britain is people go into an estate agent and they buy a house. Estate agents actually don't sell a house. And I thought, isn't that odd? And I thought, that's a business. If I got into it, I could have a real impact. So I told Clive I'd like to get into it. He said, but you know nothing about it. I said, look, Clive, don't worry about that. I'll work for you for 6 months for no salary whatsoever. If at the end of 6 months I do a good job, would you offer me some shares and a senior position? Which,
and this was
true to his Ward Turner in Sally Oak.
Ward Turner,
a little estate. Anyway, we grew that to